Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty and watched the stars like he had done every day for the past 6 months. Something was different today. The space around Earth looked wrong. There was a shimmer in the darkness, like heat waves rising from hot pavement in summer. "Sir, we're getting strange readings," said Lieutenant Tony Rodriguez from his pilot station. "There's some kind of energy field around our solar system." Jake walked over to look at the screen. The numbers made no sense. There was a barrier around their entire solar system, invisible but definitely there. It had been there for a long time, maybe centuries. "How long has this been here?" Jake asked. Dr. Lisa Parker looked up from her science station. She was the smartest person Jake knew, and if anyone could figure this out, it was her. "According to these readings, at least 200 years. Maybe longer." Jake felt cold. Someone had put a fence around Earth and never told them. "Can we break through it?" "I think so," Lisa said. "Our new quantum engines might be powerful enough." Jake looked at his crew. They were the best Earth had to offer. All of them had volunteered for this mission to explore beyond their solar system. Now they learned they had been prisoners the whole time. "Do it," Jake said. The Liberty's engines roared to life. The ship moved forward slowly, then faster. The shimmer in space grew brighter. Jake felt the ship shake as they pushed against the barrier. Then suddenly they were through. Space looked the same, but Jake knew everything had changed. They were free of Earth's solar system for the first time in human history. The crew cheered, but Jake stayed quiet. Someone had built that barrier, someone who didn't want humans to leave Earth. 3 hours later, they found out who. "Contact ahead," Tony called out. "It's a ship, but not like anything we've ever seen." On the main screen, a beautiful silver vessel appeared. It was smooth and curved like a work of art. It moved without any visible engines, gliding through space like a fish through water. "They're sending a signal," Lisa said. "It's some kind of universal translator. I can understand them." A voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect English but with a strange accent. "Unknown vessel, you are in violation of the quarantine protocol. Return to your system immediately." Jake stepped forward. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of Earth. We don't recognize any quarantine. We have the right to explore space." There was a long pause. Then the voice came back and it sounded shocked. "You are humans. This is impossible. The barrier should have held for another 1,000 years." "The barrier is broken," Jake said. "We're free now." "No," the voice said, and now it sounded afraid. "You cannot be free. You are too dangerous. The galaxy is not ready for your kind." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. "Our kind? What's that supposed to mean?" Lisa was working at her station, trying to get more information about the alien ship. "Sir, I'm picking up their internal communications. They're calling us a violent primitive species. They're scared of us." The alien voice came back. "I am Captain Zex of the Valaxian patrol ship Gentle Dawn. I must report your escape to the Harmony Assembly immediately. You must return to your system and wait for instructions." "We're not going anywhere," Jake said. "We just learned we've been prisoners for 2 centuries. We want answers." "You were not prisoners," Captain Zex said. "You were protected. The galaxy has been at peace for 800 years. We cannot allow your violent nature to destroy that peace." Jake looked around at his crew. They all looked as angry as he felt. "You don't know anything about us. You've been watching us from outside a cage." "We know enough," Captain Zex replied. "Your species wages war constantly. You kill your own kind for resources, territory, and beliefs. You celebrate violence in your entertainment. You are everything the galaxy has moved beyond." Dr. Lisa Parker spoke up. "Captain Zex, I'm a scientist. I want to learn about your civilization. Surely we can talk about this peacefully." "There is nothing to discuss," Zex said. "The Harmony Assembly will decide your fate. You must return to Earth immediately or face the consequences." Jake had heard enough. His grandfather had fought in World War III. His father had served in the Mars colony wars. The Morrison family had never backed down from a fight, and Jake wasn't going to start now. "Here's what's going to happen, Captain Zex," Jake said. "We're going to continue our mission. We're going to explore this galaxy whether you like it or not. And if your Harmony Assembly has a problem with that, they can come talk to us face to face." The alien ship moved closer, and Jake could see weapon ports opening along its hull. But the weapons looked old, designed for show rather than real fighting. "You are making a terrible mistake," Captain Zex said. "The Harmony Assembly commands a fleet of 10 million ships. We have the technology to pacify entire star systems. You cannot stand against us." "Maybe not," Jake said. "But we're going to try." The Valaxian ship fired a blue beam at the Liberty. Jake felt the ship shake, but their shields held. The alien weapons were powerful, but not designed to actually destroy anything. They were meant to disable, not kill. Tony Rodriguez was already moving. His fighter instincts kicked in as he spun the Liberty around the alien ship's beam. "Sir, their weapons aren't made for real combat. They're trying to capture us, not destroy us." Jake smiled. "Then let's show them what real combat looks like. Target their weapon systems." "Sir, are you sure?" Lisa asked. "This could start a war." "Look, around, Doctor," Jake said. "We've been in a Cold War for 200 years, we just didn't know it." The Liberty's missiles struck the Valaxian ship's weapon ports. The alien vessel spun out of control, clearly not designed to take real damage. Captain Zex's voice came over the radio, panicked and confused. "You attacked us. This is impossible. No civilized species attacks first." "We're not civilized by your standards," Jake said. "We're human." The Valaxian ship limped away, heading deeper into space. Jake knew they would report back to their superiors. Soon the entire galaxy would know that humans had broken free. General Patricia Walsh's voice came over the communication system from Earth. "Morrison, what's your status?" "We've made contact, General," Jake reported. "And we've made enemies." "Copy. That, Commander. How long do we have?" Jake looked at the star charts Lisa had downloaded from the Valaxian ship. The galaxy was huge, filled with hundreds of civilizations, all of them peaceful, all of them afraid of humans. "Not long, General. They're going to come for us, all of them." "Then we better get ready," Patricia said. "Come home, Morrison. We've got work to do." As the Liberty turned back toward Earth, Jake thought about what they had learned. Humanity was alone in a galaxy that saw them as monsters. They were outnumbered 1,000,000 to 1 by species that had forgotten how to fight. But Jake Morrison was an American, and Americans had never been good at backing down from a fight. His ancestors had fought the British Empire, the Nazi war machine, and the corporate oligarchy. Now it was his turn to fight for freedom. The stars ahead looked different now. They weren't friendly points of light anymore. They were the homes of enemies who had kept humanity caged like wild animals. Jake smiled. They were about to learn why the cage had been necessary. 3 months had passed since the Liberty broke through the quarantine. Earth was busy building ships and training soldiers, but they also needed to understand their enemy. That job fell to Ambassador Helen Baker. Helen stood in the shuttle bay of the diplomatic ship New Horizon, adjusting her formal suit one last time. She was about to become the first human to visit an alien world. The planet below was called Nexus Prime, the capital of the Galactic Federation. "Are you ready for this, Ambassador?" asked Director Carl Johnson. He was Earth's top intelligence officer, a man who had spent his life learning other people's secrets. "As ready as I can be," Helen said. "Remember, I'm here to buy us time. Keep building those ships." The shuttle landed on a platform that looked like it was made of crystal and light. Alien beings waited for her, but they looked almost human. Helen had expected something more strange. Her guide was a tall woman with blue skin and silver hair. "I am Counselor Mira of the Altarian people," she said with a perfect smile. "Welcome to Nexus Prime." Helen followed Mira through streets that were too clean, too perfect. There was no trash, no noise, no anger. Everyone moved slowly and smiled constantly. It felt wrong. "Your city is beautiful." Helen said, trying to be polite. Thank you, Mira replied. We have worked very hard to eliminate all sources of conflict and stress. Everyone here is happy. They walked past a group of children playing in a park. The children were different species, but they all played the same gentle games. No running, no shouting, no competition. Helen remembered her own childhood, full of scraped knees and loud arguments with friends. These children looked like they had never felt real joy. The Harmony Assembly building was enormous, made of the same crystal material as everything else. Inside, representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in perfect circles. They all looked calm and peaceful. Elder Keth, the leader of the assembly, was an ancient being who looked like a wise grandfather. His voice was soft and kind when he spoke to Helen. Ambassador Baker, we are so pleased you have come. We hope to resolve this unfortunate situation peacefully. Helen sat at a small table in the center of the great hall. Hundreds of alien eyes watched her, but she felt no hostility from them. That was the problem. She felt nothing at all. Elder Keth, my people want to understand why we were quarantined. We had no idea that barrier existed. Of course you didn't, Elder Keth said with a sad smile. Your species was not ready to learn of the greater galaxy. You were still in your violent phase. Our violent phase? Helen asked. All young species go through it, explained Counselor Mira. The need to fight, to compete, to dominate others. It is natural but dangerous. Most species grow out of it naturally. And if they don't? Helen asked, though she was afraid of the answer. Elder Keth's smile faded slightly. Then we helped them. The galaxy has been at peace for 800 years, Ambassador. We cannot allow that peace to be broken. Helen looked around the hall. Every face was calm. Every voice was gentle. It was like a room full of people on strong medicine. How exactly do you help them? She asked. We have wonderful technology, Elder Keth said, his smile returning. We can adjust brain chemistry to reduce aggressive impulses. We can modify genetic codes to eliminate the desire for violence. It is a gift we would gladly share with humanity. Helen felt cold. They wanted to change what made humans human. And if we refuse this gift? The room went very quiet. Elder Keth looked genuinely sad. Ambassador, no species has ever refused. Why would they choose violence over peace? Helen stood up. She thought about her brother Mike, who had died fighting pirates near Jupiter. She thought about her daughter Sarah, who wanted to be a soldier like her grandfather. She thought about every human who had ever fought for something they believed in. Because sometimes peace isn't worth the price, she said. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Director Carl Johnson was learning disturbing things about their new enemies. His spy satellites had been watching Federation worlds for weeks, and the pictures they sent back were troubling. He sat in his office with Senator Bobby Wright, one of Earth's most powerful politicians. Bobby was known for his strong opinions and his louder voice. What are you seeing out there, Carl? Bobby asked. Carl pulled up images on his screen. Look at this. These are mining operations on 12 different worlds. See how they work? Bobby squinted at the screen. They're all doing the same thing, same movements, same timing, like robots. Exactly, Carl said. They've been modified. They can't think of new ways to do things because that might lead to conflict. Carl showed more pictures. Here's a Federation military base. Look at their weapons. Bobby laughed. Those aren't weapons, they look like toys. They're designed to stun, not kill. The Federation hasn't fought a real war in centuries, they've forgotten how. Carl's assistant, Lieutenant Kim Foster, came into the room with a report. Kim was young, but smart, and she had been studying alien technology. Sir, I've been analyzing the data from Commander Morrison's encounter. The Federation ship had incredible technology, but they used it like children playing with toys. What do you mean? Bobby asked. They could have destroyed the Liberty easily, Kim explained. Their weapons were powerful enough, but they were programmed never to cause permanent damage. The Federation doesn't just avoid violence, they're incapable of it. Carl leaned back in his chair. How many species are in this Federation? 847, Kim said. All of them have been pacified. All of them? Bobby asked. What happened to the ones who refused? Kim looked uncomfortable. That's the problem, sir. I've been studying their historical records. There used to be over 2,000 spacefaring species in this galaxy. The room went quiet. Carl felt sick. Where are the other 1,200? Gone, Kim said quietly. The Federation calls it the Great Pacification. Any species that refused to be modified was eliminated. Bobby jumped to his feet. They committed genocide. Not exactly, Kim said. They were very careful about it. They never attacked directly. They would blockade systems, cut off trade, cause famines and plagues. Then they would offer help in exchange for pacification. Most species eventually accepted. And the ones who didn't? Carl asked. They died out. Slowly, quietly, with no one to remember them. Carl thought about Ambassador Baker on Nexus Prime, surrounded by creatures who looked kind but had murdered entire civilizations. How long before they try the same thing with us? They already are, Kim said. I've detected ships moving to block the trade routes around our solar system. They're not attacking, just watching. Waiting. Bobby was pacing now, his face red with anger. They're going to starve us out. Carl nodded. That's their plan. Make life hard for us until we beg them to fix our brains. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador, Helen Baker was having dinner with Elder Keth and the other leaders. The food was perfect, the conversation was polite, and Helen wanted to scream. Your species fascinates us, Elder Keth was saying. You have such passion, such energy. It will be wonderful to channel that into peaceful pursuits. Elder Keth, what if I told you that our passion and energy come from the same place as our violence? That you can't have one without the other? Elder Keth looked puzzled. That cannot be true. Peace and violence are opposites. Are they? Helen asked. The same drive that makes us fight also makes us explore, create, and protect what we love. Take away our ability to fight and you take away everything that makes us human. Counselor Mira spoke up. But Ambassador, look around you. See how happy everyone is. No one fights. No one suffers. No one dies in wars. Helen looked around the dining hall. Everyone was smiling, everyone was calm, everyone was empty. They looked like beautiful dolls, not living beings. They're not happy, Helen said. They're medicated. Elder Keth's smile became strained. Ambassador, I fear you are too attached to your violent nature. But do not worry. Once you receive our gift, you will understand. And if we refuse your gift? The room went silent again. Elder Keth's smile disappeared completely. No one refuses, Ambassador. No one ever refuses. Helen felt a chill run down her spine. She was sitting in a room full of murderers who had convinced themselves they were healers. They had destroyed entire civilizations and called it mercy. I think this meeting is over, Helen said, standing up. I hope you will reconsider, Elder Keth said, his smile returning. For the sake of your species. Helen walked out of the dining hall with her head high. She had learned what she came to learn. The Federation wasn't just an enemy, it was something worse. It was evil that thought it was good. Back on her ship, she sent a message to Earth. They're not going to negotiate. They're going to try to change us or destroy us. Get ready for war. 6 months after Ambassador Baker's warning, the Federation fleet arrived at the edge of human space. Admiral Rick Stone stood on the bridge of the battleship Washington and watched 10,000 alien ships drop out of hyperspace. That's a lot of ships, said Major Amy Chen, commander of Earth's ground forces. She was visiting the fleet before the battle began. Numbers don't win wars, Rick said calmly. People do. Rick had studied every battle in human history. He knew that big armies often lost to small ones when the small army was smarter and more willing to fight. The Federation had 10,000 ships, but Earth had something better. Earth had soldiers who understood war. The alien fleet formed perfect, lines like they were on parade. Rick smiled. Pretty formations were for peacetime. In real war, you spread out so the enemy couldn't hit you all at once. A message came from the Federation flagship. Elder Keth's voice filled the bridge, sounding sad but determined. Admiral Stone, I am Commander Ceylon of the Gentle Correction Fleet. We have come to escort your species back to your home system. Please surrender your weapons and prepare to be assisted. Rick activated his communicator. Commander Ceylon, this is Admiral Stone of the Earth Defense Force. You're not welcome in our space. Turn around and go home. Admiral, we do not wish to harm you. We have brought medical ships to help your people overcome their violent programming. This can be done peacefully. We're not programmed, Rick said. We choose to fight. And we choose to fight you. There was a long pause. Then Commander Ceylon spoke again, sounding confused. Admiral, we have 10,000 ships. You have fewer than 200. Surely you can see that resistance is pointless. Rick looked at his crew. They were all volunteers, all ready to die for Earth. The Federation had 10,000 ships full of people who had forgotten why anything was worth dying for. Commander, let me teach you something about war. It's not about how many ships you have. It's about how much you're willing to lose. The Federation fleet moved forward slowly, still in their perfect lines. They fired blue stunning beams that were meant to disable human ships without destroying them. Rick had been expecting this. All ships, scatter formation, Rick ordered. Make them work for every shot. The human fleet broke apart like a flock of birds. Each ship went in a different direction, weaving between asteroids and space debris. The Federation ships tried to follow, but their formations fell apart. Chief Engineer Billy Thompson's voice came over the radio from the mining ship Cleveland. Billy had spent the last 6 months turning civilian ships into weapons. Admiral, my mining lasers are cutting through their hulls like butter. These ships weren't built for real fighting. Rick watched as Billy's converted mining ship tore apart. 3 Federation vessels. The alien ships had strong shields against energy weapons, but they had never seen industrial mining equipment used as weapons. On the planet New Austin, Major Amy Chen was getting ready for the ground battle she knew was coming. The Federation had troop ships in their fleet, filled with soldiers who had probably never seen real combat. Amy had been a Marine before the aliens came. She had fought pirates in the outer colonies and rebels on Mars. She knew how to win battles that looked impossible. Listen up, she told her soldiers. These aliens have been at peace for 800 years. They don't know how to fight dirty. We do. The Federation troop ships landed in a neat line outside New Austin's main city. Amy watched through her binoculars as alien soldiers marched out in perfect rows. They looked like they were going to a parade, not a battle. They're wearing ceremonial armor, said Sergeant Pete Davis, Amy's second-in-command. It's pretty, but it won't stop bullets. Amy smiled. Then let's welcome them to the neighborhood. The Federation soldiers advanced in perfect formation, just like their ships. They carried weapons that fired stunning energy, designed to capture rather than kill. Amy's soldiers were hidden in buildings behind rocks and in the sewers. They carried guns that fired bullets, explosives, and anything else that could hurt someone. The first alien soldier to fall looked surprised. He had probably never been shot before. His companions stopped their advance and looked around in confusion. They had been trained to fight other people who followed the same rules they did. Amy's soldiers didn't follow rules. They attacked from behind, from above, and from underground. They used traps, tricks, and terror. The Federation soldiers had superior numbers and better technology, but they didn't know what to do when the enemy refused to line up and fight fairly. In space, the battle was going even worse for the Federation. Admiral Rick Stone was using tactics that the aliens had never seen before. He hid ships behind asteroids and had them attack when the Federation fleet passed by. He sent small groups of fighters to attack the edges of their formation. He made the aliens chase him through debris fields where their big ships couldn't maneuver. Dr. Ryan Miller was watching the battle from the science ship Franklin. Ryan studied how people thought and acted, and he was fascinated by what he saw. Admiral, the Federation crews are starting to panic, Ryan reported. They've never experienced real combat stress. Some of their ships are retreating without orders. Rick nodded. What about their commanders? They're trying to maintain formation, but they don't know how to adapt. They keep using the same tactics even though they're not working. Rick had expected this. The Federation had spent centuries forgetting how to fight. They knew how to operate weapons and move ships, but they didn't understand the chaos and fear of real battle. All ships, press the attack, Rick ordered. Don't let them. Regroup. The human fleet swarmed the Federation formation like angry wasps. Billy Thompson's mining ships cut through alien hulls while Tony Rodriguez led fighter squadrons through the wreckage. The Federation had better technology, but the humans knew how to use what they had. On New Austin, Major Amy Chen was winning. Her battle, too. The Federation soldiers were brave, but they fought like they were playing a game with rules. Amy's soldiers fought like their families' lives depended on it, because they did. Major, the aliens are requesting a ceasefire to collect their wounded, Sergeant Davis reported. Amy shook her head. In the middle of a battle? These people really don't understand war. The Federation commander was a tall alien with 4 arms and golden skin. He stood in the middle of the battlefield holding a white flag, looking confused when Amy's soldiers didn't stop shooting. Amy crawled through the rubble to get close enough to talk to him. "What do you want?" she shouted over the gunfire. "I am Colonel Vex," the alien called back. "I request a temporary halt to collect our injured. This is standard protocol." "There's no protocol in war," Amy said. "There's just winning and losing, Colonel." Vex looked shocked. "But the injured need medical attention. Surely you cannot be so cruel as to deny them aid." Amy thought about her brother who had died defending the Jupiter colonies. The pirates who killed him hadn't stopped to help the wounded. "Colonel, this is war, not a sporting event. You came here to change us into something we're not. Did you think we'd be polite about it?" The Federation attack began to fall apart. In space, their perfect formations crumbled as human ships attacked from all directions. On the ground, their orderly advance turned into a confused retreat as Amy's soldiers refused to fight by the rules. Commander Salon's voice came over the radio, speaking to Admiral Stone. For the first time, the alien commander sounded frightened. "Admiral, Stone, we were told your species was primitive. These tactics are barbaric." "These tactics are effective," Rick replied. "We're not primitive. We're experienced. We demand you fight honorably." Rick laughed. "Honor is for peacetime. This is war." The battle lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the Federation had lost 3,000 ships and 20,000 soldiers. Earth had lost 30 ships and 500 soldiers. The surviving Federation forces retreated beyond the asteroid belt. Commander Ceylon sent one final message to Admiral Stone. "Admiral, this was not a victory. The full Federation fleet contains 10 million ships. What you faced today was merely a patrol force." Rick Stone looked at the wreckage floating around his ship. Human and alien debris mixed together in space. His people had won the first battle, but the war was just beginning. "Commander Ceylon, send a message to your bosses. Tell them that humans don't surrender and we don't give up. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget." As the Federation ships disappeared into hyperspace, Rick knew they would be back. But he also knew they would be afraid. For the first time in 800 years, the galaxy had seen real war, and Earth had reminded everyone what humans did best. The Federation had forgotten how to fight. Humans never had. 1 year had passed since the first battle, and everything had changed. President John Martinez stood in the White House Situation Room, looking at a map of the galaxy. Red dots showed Federation worlds, blue dots showed human colonies, and green dots showed something new. Worlds that had joined the Terran Alliance. "How many allies do we have now?" John asked. General Patricia Walsh, now his top military advisor, checked her tablet. 47 species have joined us, Mr. President. More are asking for help every day." John shook his head in amazement. When the war started, humans were alone against the galaxy. Now they were leading a rebellion of species that wanted their freedom back. The first ally had been unexpected. Colonel Sandra Williams was on the bridge of the cruiser Boston when they received a distress call from a planet called Zephyr. The message was weak and broken, like someone was trying to hide it. "This is Zephyr Defense Force. Request assistance. Federation ships attacking civilians." Sandra looked at Captain Pete Davis, who was commanding the Boston. "That's Not possible. The Federation doesn't attack civilians. Maybe we should take a look, Pete suggested. When they arrived at Zephyr, they found Federation ships bombarding cities from orbit. But something was wrong with the picture. The people on the ground were fighting back with weapons that looked almost human. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from the planet," said the communications officer. The face that appeared on screen looked almost human, but with golden skin and silver hair. The alien spoke with a strong accent, but his words were clear. "Human, ships, this is General Crack of the Zephyrian Resistance. We have been fighting the Federation for 50 years. We request assistance." Sandra was confused. "General, we were told all Federation species were peaceful." General Crack laughed bitterly. "Peaceful because they were forced to be. My people resisted the pacification. We have been hiding in the mountains fighting for our freedom." Sandra made a decision that would change the war. "General Crack, this is Colonel Williams of the Earth Defense Force. We're coming down to help." The battle for Zephyr was different from any fight humans had experienced. The Zephyrians were natural warriors, even better fighters than humans in some ways. They had been fighting guerrilla war against the Federation for decades. "Your species is impressive," General Crack told Sandra after they had driven off the Federation ships. "We heard stories about humans who broke free of the quarantine. We thought they were myths." "We're real," Sandra said, "and we're not the only ones fighting back." General Crack smiled, and Sandra saw something in his eyes that she recognized. It was the same look her grandfather had when he talked about fighting for freedom. "Colonel Williams, the Zephyrian people would like to propose an alliance." That was how the Terran Alliance began. Within months, other species were reaching out to humans. Some had been hiding like the Zephyrians. Others had been forced into the Federation but secretly hated it. A few were new species that the Federation was trying to pacify. Dr. Nancy Lee was working on the most important project of her life. In her laboratory on New Austin, she was trying to reverse the pacification process that had been forced on billions of aliens. "The good news is that it can be reversed," Nancy told President Martinez during a video call. "The bad news is that it's complicated." Nancy had been studying Zephyrian volunteers who wanted to undo the partial pacification their species had suffered. The Federation used different methods on different species. Some got genetic modification, some got brain implants, some got chemical treatments. "Can you fix all of them?" John asked. "Give me time," Nancy said. The Zephyrians are helping. They remember what their people were like before the pacification. The first successful reversal was a Zephyrian soldier named Vex. He had been captured by the Federation as a child and given brain implants to make him peaceful. When Nancy removed the implants, the change was dramatic. "I remember now," Vex said, tears streaming down his face. "I remember being angry. I remember wanting to fight. I remember caring about things enough to risk everything." Word of Nancy's success spread quickly. Species across the galaxy began sending representatives to New Austin, begging for help. The Federation had stolen their emotions, their drive, their ability to care deeply about anything. Commander Pete Davis was running the new Alliance Navy. His job was to protect the growing number of free worlds and establish trade routes between them. It was harder than fighting the Federation in some ways. "The problem is logistics," Pete explained to Admiral Stone during a planning meeting. "The Federation controlled all the major trade routes for centuries. We're having to build new ones from scratch." "What do we need?" Rick asked. "Ships, mostly. Cargo ships, fuel ships, supply ships. The Alliance is growing faster than we can support it." The solution came from an unexpected source. The Rigelian people were master shipbuilders who had been forced to build only peaceful vessels for the Federation. When they joined the Alliance, they brought 300 years of suppressed engineering knowledge. "We have so many designs we were never allowed to build," explained Engineer Tolan, the Rigelian representative. "Warships, fast cargo haulers, deep space explorers. The Federation only let us build passenger liners and research vessels." Within 6 months, Alliance shipyards were producing vessels that were faster and tougher than anything the Federation had. The Rigelians had spent centuries imagining what they could build if they were free. Now they had their chance. Ambassador Steve, Cooper was Earth's new diplomatic leader. His job was to convince neutral species to join the alliance, and he was getting good at it. Steve was on the planet Centauria, talking to their planetary council. The Centaurians were traitors who had stayed neutral in the war, but Steve could see they were interested in what humans offered. "Ambassador Cooper," said Counselor Yara, "your alliance promises freedom, but freedom brings chaos. The Federation brings order." Steve had heard this argument before. "Counselor, let me ask you something. When did your people last invent something new?" Counselor Yara looked confused. "Invent? We have everything we need." "When did you last write a song that made someone cry? When did you last fall in love so deeply it hurt? When did you last care about something enough to fight for it?" The council chamber was quiet. Steve could see the Centaurians thinking about his questions. "The Federation offers you safety," Steve continued. "The Alliance offers you life. Real life with all the pain and joy that comes with it." Counselor Yara was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Ambassador, what would joining the Alliance require?" The war was changing. What had started as Earth fighting alone against the galaxy was becoming something bigger. Free species were fighting alongside humans, sharing technology and knowledge. Captain Jenny Scott was leading a new kind of unit called the Minutemen. They were special forces soldiers who worked with alien resistance groups on Federation worlds. Jenny's team was on the planet Altair, working with local rebels to sabotage Federation facilities. Her squad included humans, Zephyrians, and 2 Rigelians who were experts at breaking Federation technology. "The communications array is heavily guarded," reported Sergeant Luis Garcia, Jenny's demolitions expert. "But there's a weakness in their patrol pattern." Jenny studied the target through her binoculars. "These guards have probably never seen real combat. They're going through the motions." The attack went perfectly. Jenny's team disabled the array and escaped without a single casualty. But the real victory came 3 hours later when the planet's resistance groups launched coordinated attacks across 12 cities. "The locals are fighting back," Jenny reported to command. "They're not waiting for us to save them. They're saving themselves." That was happening across the galaxy. Species that had been pacified for centuries were remembering how to fight. The Alliance wasn't conquering the Federation. It was teaching the Federation's own people to free themselves. President Martinez received a message that changed everything. It came from deep inside Federation space, from a species called the Andromedans. "President Martinez, we have been watching your alliance with great interest. We are the Andromedan Republic, and we have been hiding from the Federation for 200 years. We wish to join your cause." John called an emergency meeting with his advisors. "How many Andromedans are there?" Intelligence Director Carl Johnson had been trying to find that information. "Mr. President, we think they control at least 50 star systems. They've been completely hidden from Federation sensors." "How is that possible?" General Walsh asked. "They're using technology we've never seen before. Cloaking devices, hidden planets, entire fleets that can disappear from sensors. They've been building up their strength for 2 centuries, waiting for the right moment to strike." John realized what this meant. The Alliance wasn't just a rebellion anymore. It was becoming a real threat to Federation control. The galaxy was choosing sides, and more species were choosing freedom every day. But John also knew the Federation wouldn't give up easily. They had ruled the galaxy for 800 years. They would fight to keep their power, even if it meant destroying the very peace they claimed to protect. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and it would decide the future of every living being in the galaxy. 2 years after humanity broke free from the quarantine, the galaxy was at war with itself. Fleet Admiral Greg Turner stood on the bridge of the massive battleship Constitution and watched the largest fleet in human history prepare for battle. Around him floated ships from 127 different species, all united under the banner of the Terran Alliance. "Admiral, the final attack groups are in position," reported Captain Jenny Scott, now his Chief Tactical Officer. "We have 5 million ships ready to assault Nexus Prime." Greg nodded. The Federation's capital world was the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy, But the Alliance had something the Federation didn't expect. Unity built on choice, rather, than force. On the planet's surface, General Michelle Brooks was preparing the largest ground assault in galactic history. Her army included human marines, Zephyrian warriors, Rigelian engineers, and soldiers from dozens of other species. "Remember," Michelle told her commanders over the radio, "we're not here to conquer. We're here to liberate. The people down there are prisoners, even if they don't know it." The Federation had made their last stand at their capital. Elder Keth and the Harmony Assembly had gathered every ship they could find, nearly 15 million vessels surrounding their home world. But Greg could see something in their formations that gave him hope. "Admiral, their fleet looks impressive, but look at the spacing," Jenny pointed out. "They're bunched up to protect the planet. Classic defensive mistake." Greg smiled. 2 years of war had taught the Federation how to fight, but they were still thinking like peacekeepers instead of warriors. They were trying to protect everything, which meant they couldn't attack anything effectively. "All Alliance fleets, this is Admiral Turner. Execute Operation Freedom." The attack began from 12 different directions at once. Alliance ships poured out of hyperspace around Nexus Prime, each fleet targeting a different section of the Federation defense. The Andromedans, using their advanced cloaking technology, appeared right in the middle of the Federation formation. Ambassador Steve Cooper was aboard one of the Andromedan ships, watching their secret technology in action. The Andromedans had spent 2 centuries preparing for this day, building weapons and ships the Federation had never seen. "Admiral Turner, this is the Andromedan flagship," came a voice over the radio. "We are deploying the Freedom Signal." Steve watched as every Andromedan ship began broadcasting on frequencies that reached every Federation vessel. The message was simple but powerful: the truth about what the Federation had done to the galaxy. On Federation ships throughout the fleet, crew members were hearing for the first time about the species that had been eliminated for refusing pacification. They learned about the resistance movements that had been crushed. They discovered that their peaceful galaxy was built on the bones of free peoples. The effect was immediate. Hundreds of Federation ships stopped fighting and began broadcasting surrender signals. Their crews, learning the truth about their government, refused to continue the battle. Captain Pete Davis was leading a squadron of Alliance fighters through the chaos of the space battle. His job was to create gaps in the Federation line for the main fleet to exploit. "This is Davis' squadron. We've got Federation ships surrendering all around us," Pete reported. "Their crews are abandoning ship rather than fight." Greg Turner watched the tactical display with amazement. The Federation fleet was collapsing from within as more ships learned the truth and refused to fight. But the core ships around Nexus Prime were still commanded by the true believers, the ones who knew exactly what they had done to the galaxy. "All units focus on the inner defense ring," Greg ordered. "Those ships won't surrender, they'll fight to the end." On the surface of Nexus Prime, Captain Jenny Scott led a special team with one mission: capture the Harmony Assembly alive. They needed proof of what the Federation had done, and they needed the leaders to answer for their crimes. Jenny's team included Luis Garcia, now a major, and representatives from every major Alliance species. They had trained for months for this mission, studying the layout of the assembly building and planning their approach. "Remember, we want them alive," Jenny told her team as their shuttle landed in the Crystal City. "These people have committed genocide, but they're going to face justice, not revenge." The city was in chaos. Federation security forces were fighting, Alliance troops in the streets, but many civilians were simply standing around looking confused. They had been told their whole lives that the Federation was good and peaceful. Learning the truth was breaking their minds. Jenny's team moved through the crystal halls of the assembly building, past artwork celebrating 800 years of peace. Now that artwork looked different. Every statue of Harmony was built on a foundation of murdered species. They found Elder Keth in the main assembly hall, surrounded by the remaining council members. The old alien looked smaller than Jenny remembered from the videos. Without his power, he was just a frightened old creature who had lived too long with his lies. "Elder Keth," Jenny said, raising her weapon. "By the authority of the Terran Alliance, you are under arrest for genocide and crimes against sapient species. Elder Keth looked at her with confusion. Young human, you do not understand. Everything we did was for peace. The galaxy has been peaceful for 800 years, built on the graves of everyone who disagreed with you, Jenny replied. You murdered entire species and called it mercy. They were given a choice, protested Counselor Mira, the blue-skinned woman who had first welcomed Ambassador Baker. They could accept peace or face the consequences of their violence. Major Garcia stepped forward. That's not a choice, that's extortion. The arrest of the Harmony Assembly was broadcast live across the galaxy. Billions of Federation citizens watched as their leaders were led away in chains. The truth about the Great Pacification spread like wildfire through worlds that had believed in their government's goodness. Dr. Nancy Lee was working frantically in her mobile laboratory, now aboard a hospital ship orbiting Nexus Prime. As the Chak planet fell to Alliance forces, thousands of Federation citizens were requesting depacification procedures. Doctor, we have more volunteers than we can handle, reported her assistant. These people want their emotions back. Nancy looked at the long lines of aliens waiting for treatment. Some had been pacified for so long they didn't remember what it felt like to be truly angry or truly happy. Others were young people who had never experienced real emotions at all. Let's start with the volunteers who can handle the trauma, Nancy decided. Getting your emotions back after centuries isn't easy. Some of these people are going to need counseling. The war ended not with a final battle, but with a choice. Across the galaxy, Federation worlds were voting on whether to remain part of the old system or join the new Terran Alliance. World after world chose freedom. President John Martinez stood before the newly formed Galactic Senate, a body that included representatives from over 300 species. They met not on Nexus Prime, but on New Austin, the world humans had built as a symbol of freedom. Citizens of the galaxy, John said, today we begin a new era. Not an era of enforced peace, but an era of chosen cooperation. Not a galaxy ruled by fear, but a galaxy united by hope. The new government was based on human democratic principles but modified to work with hundreds of different species. Every world had the right to govern itself. Every species had the right to choose its own path. And most importantly, every being had the right to feel, to fight for what they believed in, and to be truly alive. Admiral Rick Stone, now head of the Alliance Defense Force, had a different job than before. Instead of preparing for war, he was teaching other species how to defend themselves. The goal isn't to make everyone fight, Rick told a gathering of new Alliance officers. The goal is to make sure everyone can choose to fight if they need to. Some species chose to remain peaceful. Others, like the Zephyrians, became warrior cultures again. Most fell somewhere in between, developing the ability to defend themselves while preferring diplomatic solutions. The trials of the former Federation leaders took place on Earth, in the same courtroom where war criminals had been judged for centuries. Elder Keth and his council faced justice for the extinction of over 1,000 species. The court finds the defendants guilty of genocide and crimes against sapient life, announced Judge Patricia Walsh, who had retired from the military to serve on the tribunal. However, in keeping with Alliance principles, you will be imprisoned, not executed. Even monsters deserve the chance to live. Elder Keth was led away to spend the rest of his life in prison, finally experiencing the consequences he had imposed on so many others. 10 years later, Ambassador Helen Baker stood in the same Crystal City where she had first learned the truth about the Federation. But now it looked different. The perfect, sterile beauty had been replaced by the chaos of real life. There was noise, argument, laughter, and tears. Children of a dozen different species played together in the parks, but unlike before, they were really playing. They ran, they shouted, they argued, and they made up. They were learning to be alive. Helen walked past a memorial wall that listed the names of every species the Federation had destroyed. It was the galaxy's promise to never forget what enforced peace could cost.